Welcome, folks. Starting to join us. Excited to be here with you all. Day 2 of iconic effect. I was just telling Mara that I have lost my ability to write, and apparently I've lost my ability to speak and also to see it. This is the first time I've trotted at these readers since I got them, but 3 months ago. Anyway, so thrilled that you are here. Thank you for joining us. Hey, Kit, Stephanie, lovely to see you all. Thank you all for the messages that we've been getting overnight about the impact of the conversation so far. So deeply appreciated. We never know what all is going to happen when we do these kinds of things. So welcome to folks who are live. Welcome to folks who are watching the recording. As I did yesterday, I'm going to really frame up what day 2 of Iconic Effect is all about. So I know that some folks are going to be joining us for the first time. So I apologize to all of y'all who have already heard me explain all of this, but it still feels important to me. And if I could only find my share screen. Why do I have a hard time finding share screen every time? It's a new button that I've never actually seen before. Oh, there it is. Okay, so point is Iconic Effect. This is, I've been doing this body of work for the iconic ideas for quite some time. And, the idea being we are so good at gaslighting ourselves, so good at making ourselves wrong for, for people pleasing and diminishment and comparison, all of these things. But what if we held that they hold something magnificent and that what it holds is actually our leadership edge and maybe not a challenge after all, and the very thing that makes you iconic. So house rules as ever, Leslie is in the room holding up the sides of our process here. Thank you for being here, Leslie, even though it is bloody early for you. Thank you. So we are recording, of course, for those who are unable to make the call, and also for you to go back and reflect. As I went back and listened to Greg and Ash's wisdom yesterday and was struck by new things that, of course, I didn't see at the time. Try to stay off mute, off audio until we open up for Q&A. And then by all means, please show up, ask your questions of Mara. Mara is just an exquisitely brilliant human. And, she's created time and space to be here with us. So inside the Actors Studios, I keep trying to say, I'm just, nobody's picking up on it, but that's what it's about. So you can go ahead and pop those in the chat and Leslie will pull them out for us during the Q&A, or again, you go off mute and go ahead and ask. And please feel free to share what you're learning outside and with using the Iconic Identities hashtag so we can find them and amplify it. And closed captioning should be available to you. Please, Leslie, make sure that is so. And again, this whole idea here is I wanted to do an interview series with some of the most iconic folks that I know. When I do this work with people in my programs, we talk a lot about the aspirational versions of the icons that we admire, people that are outside of our circle of influence or outside of our lives. And I wanted to bring in a little bit closer some folks who are in my life, so you can actually have more proximal models of possibility. And my hope, of course, is for you to recognize yourself in their stories, yourself in their iconic journeys, and also see your own iconic nature. We are never just one of these identities. Of course, we are a multitude of them. So you have your own blend. And I know a couple of you on this call for sure know that that is true. And then as ever, I want you to consider what becomes available to you from that perspective, from those blends. On Thursday, I'm doing a solo one of these where I am going to be bringing in all of the different learnings and conversations and integrating them and hopefully giving some of y'all some pretty great next steps to take this work. So a little bit about me: leadership coach, TEDx women speaker, podcast host, and I live and work in the land of the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, Huron-Wendat, and the Haudenosaunee people, also known as Toronto. These folks still live and work on this land, as I do. Since 2007, I've spoken with thousands of leaders, legends, rock stars, motivators, just extraordinary folks, and I've spoken with tens of thousands. So I've seen a lot, had a lot of conversations, and I see the way this imposter complex permeates through people, or where it's been misdiagnosed. I am a reluctant expert, meaning I didn't go looking for it. I've shared this many, many, many different times if you are not new to my work. And I believe that we should stop blaming individuals for this experience and focus on changing systems, holding systems accountable for this experience of inviting folks to feel less than. And as ever, I want to approach the lens from which I approach this work. The lens from which I approach this work. Yeah, that's right. That's English. I'm a white, neurotypical, able-bodied woman of middle-class means living in North America. Might not be your identities. That might not be your reality. So as much as we are in a shared space, we might not be having the same shared experience. I think it's really important for us to remember and recognize as we hold ourselves, our experience with lots of compassion as well as others. So yesterday we spoke with Asha and Greg. Greg was the host, Asha's the healer. Today we get Mara Glatzel as the visionary. Later today we'll be speaking with Marie Poulin at 1 p.m. Eastern. Tomorrow we'll be Steph Cowling-Rich as our sage and Trisha Bolender as the CEO. And really the lens of this, the sort of the framing is, again, done this work for lots and lots of years, probably since about 2008 was the first bit of content that I really pulled together. And what I've discovered is that it doesn't matter, and the language I was using was stepping into your starring role. Most people will get very confused about what that role could possibly be. So I've been talking about this identity work as something to play with, something to explore for a lot of years. But if we don't know what that is, it's going to be really hard to step in, create impact from there, create legacy. That's what my folks really want. So again, this is really the context here where I look at people pleasing indicates our value of inclusivity, which shows us the host icon. The leaky boundaries points to our value of generosity, which points to the healer icon. Comparison, which points to connection, which is the maven icon. That's what we're going to talk to Marie about today. Diminishment can reflect a value of humility, not always. Perhaps it might not always be true. So we're going to explore that a little bit with Mara, which indicates the visionary. There's more to it than that, though, the visionary. Procrastination can underscore our value of discernment, which indicates the sage identity. And perfectionism, this really just speaks into our value of excellence, which gives us the CEO identity. Okay, so framing that up again, and I'll do that again one more time tomorrow, just to make sure we're all on the same page here. So we explored this space of integrity, where I was kind of exploring this space of integrity. Trust me when I tell you that Mara as a value holds integrity at the forefront. That's what I've experienced in working with her and just being with her. Integrity runs through and through. And I see Mara as an extraordinary model of presence. And for me, presence, and that's what we discussed yesterday, was integrity. Moving on. Presence for me comes down to rooting into power, which is complicated and very fraught. Being able to receive support, ask for and receive support, and then holding ourselves with the quality of reverence. So this presence space is what we're going to be exploring some with Mara today. So presence is in knowing who you are, where you come from, and where you're going, even if it's not always clear, even if it's not always completely certain. This is sort of where we're orienting ourselves. And it can become compromised when we are saddled with comparison or diminishment, okay? So we're going to talk very quickly about diminishment, again, just to frame it up. If you have done my quiz, tanyageisler.com/quiz, and discovered that you had the visionary identity, this means that your exquisite brain sees a magnificent future. Your vision leads us forward towards what's possible, towards what's good. Can I just say, as I reflect on that, how vital that is in these moments where things feel as extraordinarily fraught as they do. So, no pressure to visionaries, no pressure at all. You are the change makers, the innovators. You inspire us. You inspire us also to be inspired by ourselves. You inspire us to remind us that there is a North Star for us to follow, even when we can't see it ourselves. A lot of love for you, visionaries. And for you, it might be an ongoing struggle being a big word, but to keep showing up for your ideas and for yourself. Okay. Maybe you've been conditioned to believe that you shouldn't take up too much space. Hi. Or that when you're proud of your ideas, it sounds like boasting, that you aren't humble enough, God forbid. And so there have been times, perhaps, as a visionary, that you have diminished your ideas or you don't share them particularly widely. What a sin that is. So if you are a visionary, like Barack, like Madeline, like Mara, do not forget that your power is in the sharing of your ideas. Your power is in the sharing of your ideas. Your job is to get out in front of the stage with those ideas. It can be safe to shine. You must not hoard your brilliance. Said another way, you must not hoard your good shit. And you are to believe in your brilliant self as much as your world-changing ideas. Yeah, take a picture, Mara. You are in some good company right there. Yes, okay, that's like, do not hoard your good shit. And your ideas are big and brilliant and beautiful, but it's not enough to just put them out in the front. You got to get out there with them. This is the trickster move for a lot of visionaries, right? It's like, okay, well, I can believe in my big ideas, so I'll get them out in front. Now you gotta, you are there with them. Oh, I got some more folks in the waiting room. So shine up is your mantra. Listen, I'm going to say this a little bit specifically and distinctly. With all of those behavioral traits, the comparison, the procrastination, like all of those pieces, there is a way in which those actually keep us safe. So yes, inclusivity and generosity and connection and humility and all of these great, beautiful attributes that are our leadership edge, they are also values of safety. So I really want to make sure that we name that as well and bring that into the fold as well, because many folks have experience and it's not particularly safe to shine. Maybe we'll explore that as well. So very quickly, I want to touch on what we're going to be talking about with Marie later today. We're going to be talking about comparison. This, if you did my quiz, again, tanyageisler.com/quiz, this is about the Maven identity. This is about a beautiful value of connection, making sure, being able to connect ideas to people and people to ideas. You know the best people and you know how to connect all of those. You are a seer, a connector, which is fabulous. This is a new identity that I'm actually just starting to explore myself. I don't have a ton of Maven, but it's kind of coming back around. I'm having some fun with it. So as a Maven, though, if this is up for you, this can mean that you over-identify what's going on out there in the outer landscape and not so much on your inner landscape. So again, we're going to talk about this with Marie. And there also might be some judgment that sits in the shadow with it, of course, to be certain. Like, how could that not be? So we are, if you are a Maven, then comparison is an important teacher, but so is your inner knowing. You also have brilliant ideas and concepts that are worthy of sharing, and how what you've said or done matters, but your people want to hear it your way. That's the truth of it. So I'm going to just wrap it up right there. Please join us later today with Marie. That's at 1 p.m. Eastern. And tomorrow you're going to be speaking again. We're meeting Steph and Trisha for the Sage and the CEO identities. But without further ado, I feel like I've taken enough of your time because I really want you to get to meet Mara and her magnificent brilliance. So Mara, welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you for representing the visionary identity. I'm so honored to be here with you. Okay, let me, actual classes, my God, my God. So
They're great.
they're pretty good, huh?
Yeah.
They're pretty good. Yeah, they are pretty good. Thank you. So, okay, Mara, What do we even say about Mara Glatzel? I've known Mara for years, known of Mara for years and years, and we would have, little touch points where we would connect and know so many of the same folks. And when I first got on a call with Mara, it was like we had known each other for eons. I'm such a fan of the way you move in the world. I'm such a fan of the work you do in the world. Cannot tell you the number of folks who have worked with you that I admire deeply. And so I was pretty excited to get that opportunity to talk to you and then to get to work with you in my body of work. So you've just published your book, Needy. I am waiting with bated breath. I'm actually really, can you tell me? How to advocate for your needs and claim sovereignty, which is such an that's got to be one of my very first questions for you. But I just am so grateful that you're here. Again, so grateful for the work that you do in the world. Thank you and welcome.
Thanks for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
What does needy mean?
So I think I'll just start out with the vision, which is a reclamation of what it means to be needy. And I grew up, I'm sure many of us can conjure an image of what neediness looks like. It's that like clingy, whiny, hungry ghost, never enough, always wanting more. That felt experience on the other side is this person's going to suck me dry. And I have to protect myself against it. Meanwhile, the needy person is just trying to connect and, is having this experience of my needs are the thing that stands between me and the connection that I'm looking for. And it's actually quite convenient now because I find that people who have a feeling about the title of my book, it's just like a surefire sign that this is a book that is for you, which is very convenient. And I definitely have a feeling about neediness myself. But when I wrote the book, I sought to redefine it in such a way that we could have more compassion for others, more compassion for ourselves, as well as a real life roadmap for how to get our needs met in better, more efficient, good feeling, straightforward, and emotionally honest ways. And rethinking that neediness to what is neediness? It's a bid for connection. It's a desire to matter. It is a desire to be cared for and prioritized. And what I find is that for many people who struggle with neediness, they've been taught that getting your needs met means outsourcing an inside job, and they haven't learned how to take responsibility for their own needs. So the book is heavy-handed in that direction because I believe that first and foremost, your needs are your responsibility, and that's a good thing. That's a really, really, really good thing. Your needs are a beautiful aspect of yourself and are these guideposts that are trying to direct you towards the life that you want. I find that your needs are the answer to most of the questions that you're asking. Like, why don't I have this? Why doesn't it feel better? Why don't I feel seen, heard, or held in my relationship? Why, right? Because you're not getting what you need. And until you really know what you need and take responsibility for it, learn how to advocate for it with other people, your needs are going to keep going unmet. And it's not your fault, but we don't have the tools. We don't have a cultural conversation about what this looks like by and large.
Okay. A lot of questions. Hi, thank you. Whoa. How do I was sharing with somebody yesterday that I'm actually not a great podcast host because I'm so in it. Like I'm like trying to be mindful of what other people probably want to know, but for me, like I'll just ask my questions as I got my questions. Do you find, so I think that you named it, people have a hard time knowing what their needs are. Do you find that people can discern their needs by what it is they are giving away? Have you experienced that?
Yeah, sometimes. Sometimes people are really pissed that other people in their lives aren't taking care of them the way that they are taking care of the people in their lives. And that
Right.
is a really good start.
Right.
Um, Resentment, anger, all really good places to check for boundaries that are being crossed or needs that are not being met. And, oftentimes we're socialized. Many of us, I mean, most of us are socialized to really read somebody else's mind. That's what it means to be good. We're told that what love looks like is that other people are going to read our minds and that we'll know that we are worthy and valuable to them because they will give us what we need without us even having to ask. And
Mm.
all of these messages are so problematic when it comes to actually getting what you need because there's so much mind reading. And we can't expect other people to give to us what we are giving to them without us having to ask for it.
Right, right, right. Um, I was thinking about this earlier when I was contemplating the reading somebody's mind and getting acknowledged for that. Um, I mentioned in my sort of preamble that identity, is such a place to start. So for a lot of folks, this idea of being the over deliverer, the over giver, the tender of other folks can be part of the identity. So to start, hi, to start to require is a shift in how, first of all, how we see ourselves, and then how
Mhm.
others relate to us. Um, that's scary.
It's scary. It's scary, but it works so much better. I mean, there is a period of time where things are a little funky. I will 100% give us all that. And that can be uncomfortable, but the more explicit that we can be, the more quickly we're going to find, oh wow, now we're all on board, right? Because there's so much room for misunderstanding and misinterpretation when we're leaning into mind reading, and we are all leaning into mind reading.
Mm-hmm.
And, this happens in business relationships between us and our clients. This happens in personal relationships.
Mm-hmm.
And when needs are unspoken and presumed, we attach all of this value, right? Who am I if that person knows what I need and is just giving it to me? What does that mean about my need? It's validated because somebody else is giving it to me externally. I don't have to ask for it. We really have to begin to divest ourselves from all of that. Because what is true is that many of us aren't getting our needs met. And we're kind of waiting, or we're trying to better ourselves. We're trying to improve ourselves in other people's estimation, again, to get our needs met in these unspoken ways versus asking for what we need. And sure, asking for what you need is a vulnerable act. And there are people in your life who will not have the capacity to give you what you need. And that may be heartbreaking, but you stand a much greater
Yeah.
chance for getting your needs met if you are ready, able, and willing to ask for them out loud.
Have you had the experience of getting your needs met and then been like, womp womp, like that's not what I thought that was gonna be?
There are two things here for me, and I'm not sure which angle your question is going in, but I'm going to give them
Let's
to you
see.
both. The first is it's really hard to receive. So sometimes you ask for what you need, and then you're like, here I am. Oh my gosh, I'm really uncomfortable. This is horrible. I hate this. I hate the
Ding, ding, ding.
vulnerability of having my needs met. Um, yeah. Yeah, I
That's
forget
it.
the second piece, but um oh, well, the other piece, what I was going to say for the other piece is that sometimes we think we need something, but actually what we need is something else. And so it doesn't actually hit the mark. That is possible. But yeah, it's funny. I mean, receiving is a whole other animal, right? There's skills that require to get you to the point of receiving. And then receiving, we don't often think about receiving as a skill unto itself.
Yep.
And I, in my work, in my life, in my brain, I think about this as sitting on my hands. Because the very first time I was conscious of this happening to me, it was my 6-year-old was a baby, had a lot of postpartum mood stuff. I had been doing all of the waking up in the night, and I just couldn't. I was the end of my rope, and I asked my partner to wake up with our daughter, and they gladly did and got up. And then, of course, I mean, I'm not going back to sleep. I'm just lying there in bed. I have my hands tucked underneath my thighs,
Mm,
saying to myself, like, you asked for it, just lay here and take it. Like, you asked for it, that is good. You have to ask. I felt so uncomfortable. Everything in me wanted to either beat me up for saying, was that really necessary? You had to go wake a whole person up. You couldn't have just done it. What's wrong with you? Why couldn't you just rally? This is pathetic.
right.
And then this other piece of wanting to take back the ask. So there's a lot that happens in that moment of receiving. And I like that visual image of, I'm just sitting on my hands. I'm trying to stay as open as possible. And knowing that discomfort is a part of that process. And as you get better, it will feel more comfortable.
Mhm. Yeah. So now you've just opened like 15 other doors for me. So, hey, listen, y'all, this is precisely why I'm saying if you've got questions that I'm not asking on your behalf, go ahead, pop them in the chat, because I'm going in this door. That might not be the door that you want me to go in with Mara. So now's your chance. Two things that came up for me. One is that I think that I think that when I do want to do rollback on my requests has a lot to do with me thinking that the statute of limitations has run out on my capacity to ask for more, or my ability. Like, I've only got so much in the goodwill bank that this person is willing to gift me. So I think there's that. And then I think there's also, there's something about needs being met, and then what about wants?
Mm-hmm.
Like, we have a hard time getting our needs met. How the hell are we going to get our wants met? So, like,
Mm-hmm.
is your next book wanty?
Yeah. So the way that I think about needs and wants, almost every single conversation I have about needs with my clients has them wanting to put needs and wants into a hierarchy because they feel like I have this
Mm,
much
mm,
and I want like the biggest bang for my buck, basically. Like can only do so much, and that feels like I need to prioritize the needs, and I need to know what is a need and what is a want because I can only give myself this much, and a
yeah,
want is secondary.
Grady.
So I like to think about instead, if we take them out of the hierarchy, that, the need is what you require and the want is what you desire. And actually, they work really beautifully in tandem with one another, where the need is the what, is the container, and the want is the how. So say
Mm,
we'll do something really simple. Say you're hungry, you need breakfast, right? That's the need, is food, sustenance. I'm hungry. And the want is what kind of breakfast in particular you're hungry for. What the flavor of what would really be pleasing for you. So it's not just I want breakfast, but I want, that, like, my favorite sourdough toast with eggs on it, with some cracked pepper and a cup of coffee. So when we allow for our needs and wants to work together, we are creating such a situation in these micro decisions where we are having a more satisfying experience, because it's not just the need. So I think, we all have that feeling of being in relationship with somebody who's just kind of checking the boxes and what it feels like to be cared for in that way of like, food is fuel, shove something in your mouth, so you must be satisfied, check. Versus having somebody who's like, what are you hungry for
yeah.
specifically?
Mm,
And we can be this person in relationship to ourselves. And also, this can help with our relationships with other people. I need to feel loved. And how I will feel loved is if you bring those 5 baskets of laundry upstairs so that I can fold it instead of schlepping down to the basement to bring them up myself. right? That's so specific. Or words of affirmation, a few words of affirmation, a sexy text. The what is how you want to receive the need. So when we bring them together is actually when we can get our needs met in ways that are super specific to us and thereby far more satisfying.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. That's really clear and really powerful. I will tell you that I went a little sideways because I was thinking about your toast and I was like, it's missing for me, it's missing some sauteed kale. And also sexy text just went on my sticky note.
Yeah, my partner and I do a thing where in the morning we say, is there one thing that I can do to make your day better? Because one thing is infinitely more doable than like, oh, they want this, they need this, they need this, they need this, which can feel like overwhelming. So we're practicing doing one thing. Sexy text. Day
One
change.
thing.
One sexy text.
You started with the invitation to reflect on what needy conjured, and I loved what you said too about if you find yourself, well, it's not exactly your words, but if you find yourself bristling at the idea of needy, then that's precisely why you probably need to read this, right? I have a lot of that too with my language. You know, people like, step into your starring role. I don't want to take the stage. I'm like, really, like, not even a little bit. I digress, but I really, really, really appreciated that. I would say that you've got these two, and to me they feel distinct, but I understand like where you bring them together. Needy and sovereignty. So how do those two ideas that both conjure some big feelings for folks, how do those come together?
So I find sovereignty is a really important concept for people that I work with, because for those of us who are bending into people pleasing, for those of us who see our worth as what we do for and serve others, we're enmeshed. We have no real, and I'm including myself well within the mix here. We're enmeshed, and we don't have an understanding of where do I end and where do you begin. And that might be, you know, for me, I come from a really emotionally enmeshed family. So I am just primed for this. But it goes beyond that, right? And it is this feeling of I'm only okay if everybody else in the world is okay. Well, that doesn't seem right. The conditions are, you know, that, but that used to be true for me. I'm only okay if everyone else's needs are being met, but what about my needs? And what I found was I wasn't even able to have needs or to know myself or to have pretty much anything. I mean, it seems like that's an overstatement, but I didn't have anything that was mine. Everything could just be, it was like, you know, if I have my inner landscape, there are no fences and people are just ransacking the place constantly. And so having this understanding of this is my realm of responsibility, my thoughts, my feelings, my actions, the consequences of those actions, this is my responsibility. The boundaries that I set with people, what I ask for, how I take care of myself, what I allow in and what I choose to leave kind of outside of the fence, this is mine to tend. And that for my mental health and well-being, I need to have an intact understanding of what is mine and what belongs to everyone else. Because I was too busy taking care of a million different things to even begin to take care of what was mine. So that impacted my work. It impacted my relationships because, you know, complicit in that enmeshment is doing for others, whether or not you're being asked, spending a lot of energy in a lot of different directions, which is really shows other people that you don't respect their ability to do things their own way. You're trying to take care of yourself by checking their thing off of your list, which is not your responsibility. And so when we think about sovereignty, sovereignty gives us this understanding of I am my own. I have a space unto myself. I am allowed to have things that I don't just freely hand away. I'm allowed to keep things for myself.
Mm,
I'm allowed to have conditions for how other people treat me. Uh, I don't just get to decide. I just don't like, I'm not a permeable border where I just let everything that everyone says about me get braided into my self-image.
mhm,
When you have this really porous kind of enmeshed and open system, you don't have the time or energy for your work. You don't have the time or energy for your care. Your whole life is kind of running from here to there and putting out fires and managing things that are not yours to manage.
mm. You say a little bit more about that braiding of identity. Can you tell me what is that?
Yeah. So, our self-image is fragile in a lot of ways. And if, there's that kind of Anais Nin quote that says something like, if I didn't make my own world, everyone else would have made my world for me. Butchering, but basic concept. And, if you don't have an intact understanding of who you are, what you have is everything you've been told about who you are.
Mhm,
And if you don't have a sense of a boundary, in my work, I talk about an inner landscape that has a distinct boundary and also has a gate. And I think about how we, in that capacity, are the gatekeeper. And so we're being discerning about what we allow in, because anything we allow into our inner landscape becomes a part of us. And so when we stand at that gate, we're deciding, like, is this a person whose opinion I want to define me? Is this, I'm being told this goes not just personally, but also systemic. I am, the messages that I'm receiving about who I am based on how I identify are all of these things. Are those things that I want to carry?
mm,
As a woman in a bigger body, do I want to personally carry that I'm lazy or slovenly or whatever, all of these messages that we get, unhealthy, all of these messages that we get based on how we are perceived by other people. And so having that understanding too of really manning that gate and deciding what's coming in and what's going to stay right outside on the curb outside of that gate, because we have determined that that's not a person or a system that we want to define us.
got it. As you name it like that braiding sort of sounds like it can feel a little like a noose, right? Like it's like really very can be very rigid and yeah, just went a little level one there. Thank you. That's really
Yeah.
exquisite. Yeah.
I think about it more like being how something is interwoven,
Mhm,
that we come to know ourselves by what we have been told about who we are and what we deserve.
mm,
And so when we decide to really step into our own tender stewardship and take responsibility for ourselves and for our lives, we get to determine again if what we carry is what we want to carry, right? If it makes sense to us, if it serves us, if it
yeah.
yeah. And it sometimes yes and sometimes no.
Sometimes yes and sometimes no. That's it, right? That's exactly it. So diminishment, visionary, connection. Um, when we first started working together, visionary was absolutely the iconic identity that was crystal clear to me. How have you worked with the idea of visionary? Where do you feel connected? Where does it feel disconnected?
It doesn't feel disconnected. I'm happy to say it no longer feels disconnected in any way. And if anything, it feels more and more connected every day. So I could talk about my work, but what I am going to talk about is actually a different place where this has shown up in my life. And that is that I do a ton of volunteer work in my local town where I do work around affordable housing. I'm on a bunch of different boards and committees and on end. So I became a part of this committee a couple of years ago.
Mhm.
It's
Remember
called
that.
the Local Comprehensive Plan Committee. And basically what this committee does is creates a literal plan, a vision, if you will, for the future of the town for the next 5 to 10 years.
Mhm.
And it has been such an interesting venue for me to explore my visionary identity because it is twofold. The first is that you are literally crafting this vision, which I'm good at and I love doing.
You do.
And the second is that you also get to decide how to do it. So there's like this meta visionary process that happens within it. So I, within short order, became the chair of this committee and am the like youngest chair of a committee by far in
Right.
my town.
A little bit, I would think, yeah.
And I brought we are now the youngest committee by far. I brought a lot of my friends in because we have kids and we're gonna live in this town for a while. But I have just noticed that part of it for me is really understanding what my brain does and what my brain doesn't do. So, yesterday we were having a meeting and I was kind of like in the weeds about something, and my brain does not do in the weeds very well. And I'm not super detail oriented naturally. I may have made myself very detail oriented over time because that was what was expected from me, but I'm trying now to kind of pull back and allow myself to have a bigger vision and to let that be enough and to really see how I talk in that committee space, how I conduct myself, what I say I'm available for and what I'm not.
Yeah.
And having that understanding of being a visionary is, both that technical, what is my work and what isn't, and also valuing what my work is and knowing that it's enough and that it is a powerful contribution. And I see this, when I think about needy putting a book out into the world is really interesting because really what you're saying is, here is this possibility model. Go work on it by yourself. I wrote
Yeah.
you the book.
Yeah.
And this is such a change for me because I have, for the last 12 years, been holding people's hands through the entire process. And now I have this opportunity. I mean, I'm still doing work with people, but I have this opportunity to say, this is absolutely everything that I know. I put it into this book. I did really labored over it. And for under $30, you can have it. This is the best of what I have to do. And you're going to work on it in your own way and make your own meaning out of it. And so I think, continually moving in that direction, but it is uncomfortable. It has been uncomfortable because of that enmeshment, because I saw my worth and my value as like being in the minutia, holding people's hands, because I am extremely skilled in just knowing what people need before they need it. People love to be around me because they feel well cared for. And to start to create that space where, I'm not kind of like pulling you out of bed in the morning and walking you through every part of the work and letting it stand alone is a really powerful switch. But I try to remind myself as much as I can that that's my responsibility and that that's enough.
So, I was thinking about, thank you. I was thinking about how there can be a bit of a paradox as somebody who tends to others' needs, does that mind reading successfully-ish. We definitely share this. I have a pretty good reflector. But what I've been realizing, so my kid turns 19 in in 2 weeks. I can't even. But I realized though over time how me trying to anticipate, using her as a very specific example, trying to anticipate the needs, offer it up before she even recognizes that kind of vigilance around that theoretically would have done a disservice, right? Where it's like she can't access her own needs. Now, I'm saying this like in a very big brushstroke. We've had a lot of conversations about this over a lot of years, and I think she's actually, I can start to see with a little bit of space. She's in residency university. I can see that she is getting very well versed in tending to her needs. So we got something right somewhere along the line, but I can really see that kind of paradox of where in my desire to create somebody who can do so, I felt in the earlier days that me underscoring and like, this is what you probably need, can actually be a big disservice. That just came up for me as I was thinking about you in the mind reading. And so this is
Yeah.
extremely potent.
Yeah, it's true. I have a 3-year-old and I have a 6-year-old, and it the conditioning around what it means to be a good mother is so thick. The
Mm,
narrative is so thick. And that very much includes doing those things for your child. And there is a lot of that, right? Because no, like, I am really strict about sleep schedules. I'm really strict about when they're eating. I am holding those routines in place. I mean, my kids are obviously really little. My kid ran out and ate a cheesecake off the counter for breakfast this morning, which actually protein, hey, I'm good with.
nice,
Um,
nice.
but you know, that piece of how we encourage the people around us to ask us for what they need. And I
Mhm.
find, I have a friend who is so great at this. It is just amazing. Every single time I ask for anything, what she says to me is, "Thank you so much for trusting me enough to ask me for what you need."
Yeah, beautiful.
And it could almost bring tears to my eyes. It's like how hard it can be to ask, and
Mhm.
how amazing it is to have somebody receive it in
Mhm.
such a way. Now, we can't always do that.
Mhm.
And also, saying thank you for asking for what you need doesn't mean you're saying yes, and yes, I
Yeah,
am
no,
available
no,
for it.
yeah.
But that we can learn how to be that mirror for each other, to notice, like, hey, you just did a thing that's not easy. And
Mhm.
thank you. And yes, and more, please. Really, what you're saying is, I want to know you.
Mhm.
And,
Yeah.
I think this is how we heal as adults too, right? As we say to each other, I want to know you. I was in a conversation with my partner the other day because, we do this thing where we say, well, how can I make your day better? And for days on end, they said, nothing. I don't need anything. I was like, I hate that.
Yeah.
Don't not need anything. It's like, it can be, can you take that tote box out of the back of the car? Can you, whatever. It doesn't have to be, this is my soul's longing. If you're not, if you don't, if you're like, it seems stressful to even think about it. It can be like, can you get more milk at the store? But asking for something is an emotionally vulnerable and intimate act. And it
Mm.
is also how we build trust with other people. And so the more that we ask, and the people in our lives, they want to know what you need so that they can do that thing instead of doing 500 things, trying and hoping that it's the thing that you want and need.
Gorgeous. I have two last questions for you, and then I want to turn it over to our folks who have gathered, the questions that have come in and through DMs, because I want to be mindful of your time. We've got 10 more minutes together. That is it. That is all. So y'all, if you have questions for Mara, bring them on. Um, so my framework in and around this iconic work is, integrity and action and presence. And what we're talking about sits in the land of presence, which is around power and support, which we've covered quite handily. But the piece I want to name is reverence. And reverence, it can always be such a, like it can be such a visceral kind of experience. And I feel like your work, your work, and then your work have really been, in my language, really around reverence for self, reverence for self and also for others around, in so offering yourself that reverence. You If I recall correctly, I feel like when we first spoke, you were like, "Ugh, reverence." Do you have a different relationship with it now?
I think I always was game for reverence because I love the concept, but what I realized was that I thought that I was being reverent towards myself, but I wasn't. And that there was more, right? Because the way that my business was oriented at the time was still very much in like a more of like a healer and like a direct hand holding service capacity, which had me overextending myself. And, there's nothing wrong with that. I liked it and I was good at that. So it wasn't that I was so struggling or burnt out, but I was over functioning because I didn't think that just having the vision was enough. That like I also had to be the person to like bridge the vision and so that reverence,
Yeah.
like what I grew into through our work was that understanding of having reverence for myself as the person who is holding the vision, what that requires of me personally, like what kind of support I need in order to hold that in a good way and without resentment or, burnout. But also reverence for my part in the puzzle, like that this is what I can do. So, for example, back to that local comprehensive plan committee, I am doing an amazing job, but it would be easy for me to say like, oh well, they're doing like the real like minutia of this and that or the other, and I feel like I should help them, or and not acknowledging that I'm in holding the space already doing more than enough.
Yeah.
And so having that reverence for my own, I like that piece in the puzzle, like part of the work,
Yeah, I love
and
that.
not having to do everything in order to be of service.
Well, and then, that really reminds me of Deepa Iyer's work around different roles inside of social change, where, there's the first, Lord knows we know this intimately well at this point. There are the first responders, there are the healers, there are the weavers, there are storytellers, there's a visionary, right? And these are each distinct roles. And I think where we really start to suffer is shows up when we think we have to be all the things.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's such a, like, that to me absolutely is reverence.
Mm-hmm.
um, and this is what I bring. This is the best of what I bring. Let me bring the best of what I bring, please. And you bring the best of what you bring. I love that. I also really appreciate that you bring the, what's happening, and I wouldn't even say your personal life, but your, because we often talk about this in the context of our work and our vocation. But I feel like the visionary shows up in all aspects of our life. The healer shows up in all aspects of our life. Imposter complex shows up in all aspects of our life. So I appreciate you constraining that out. All right, so Leslie and Amber, please let me know if there are any questions in the DM that I should be asking. I did have one more question about the book
Mm-hmm.
specifically. What is your favorite acknowledgement that you have received so far about the book?
Um, Carmen
Oh,
Spagnola,
mm,
Spagnola, Spagnola.
Spagnola. Mm-hmm. Oh,
Okay.
oi, oi.
I very much admire her and I love her work. And she was set to interview me, and she wrote me a message and she said, "Oh my God, I got the book. I read it all in one sitting." And I Just love that. That made me feel very loved. That she really liked it, that she's somebody I admire, but also that she just like read it in what like felt compelled to read through it in such a way. It's kind of dense in some ways. It depends on, you know, how it feels for you. Um, but yeah, I really liked that piece. Um,
I'm going to
and
sidebar for a second and say I'm a little bit pissed. She's also in Canada, and I have assumed that's the reason I haven't, because I know I pre-ordered mine the same day, unless you
there
sent
is a
an advance
Canada
copy.
issue where about half of the people have not gotten them yet.
Yeah.
I have heard. I hope it's soon.
Carmen.
Um, but yeah, that I think that piece, it is so sweet to have people loving it. Also, I recorded the audiobook, which I loved doing and is very meaningful for me as an audiobook listener. And also the process was really powerful to go out to Denver and record it. Um, and so I feel extra special love when people love the audiobook because it was very like vulnerable and intimate to read my work in studio. And so I love it
I
when
can't
people.
imagine anybody else reading your work and saying things like important. So when you say important, just every time you say it, I melt a little bit. I love it. Asha Frost was on yesterday, and she was You're the Medicine. And she was talking about how she did her audio, and I just think like, oh Lord, like what I'm so excited because as she pointed out, she does a lot of there are a lot of journeys, and tricky to do when you're, you know, multitasking, or not even multitasking, but just be able to have her voice. So I'm very excited about the audiobook aspect too.
Mm.
Okay, folks, questions for us. One that has come in: what was the write the book moment? What was the write the book moment? So I assume that means what made you decide to write the book?
So about 3 years ago, right now, COVID was happening.
Mhm.
And my literal first thought was, if I die of COVID without having written this book, I'm going to be so fucking pissed.
Mhm.
That was it. And it really showed to me that this is like the one big dream that has gone unmet and unfinished. You know, I had really three big dreams. I wanted to have kids, I wanted to have my own house, and I wanted to write a book. And I feel pretty grateful that I have all of those things. Um, but yeah, that moment, and Freya was 9 months old. The pandemic had just happened. But it was like immediately the right time.
Oh my gosh. So that is one of the few gifts of COVID.
And that was right before we started working together, I think.
Yeah.
Before.
2020.
Yeah, before.
Mhm.
Yeah. Because we were
Mhm.
working together when I was writing the book proposal, which was like all of
Oh
this
yeah.
was really, I mean, rife for imposter complex and
Oh yeah.
having skills to really see and value myself through many, I'm going to say here for the public record, many rejections, extremely many rejections. But that piece about not diminishing the value of your work as related to the feedback that you're getting, but staying true to that vision that you have for it. Um, even when everybody's saying no.
Right? Right? Absolutely. 100%. Did you get pushback on the title for that very reason?
Well,
Like, was
the
that
original
accepted?
title was Daily Tending. So I wrote a book proposal, and the original title was Daily Tending, and everybody, like 30 publishers, said no, basically. And very nicely, but yeah, definitively no. And Sounds True, who did ultimately publish the book, gave me kind of the most feedback. They said no to this proposal, but yes, maybe to you. And what we really like is Needy, which is also the name of my podcast. So then I wrote a second whole book proposal, which these are like 80 pages long. And my agent said no out of hand, didn't ever see anybody. I wrote a third book proposal that was for Needy, and that was then picked up by Sounds True.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
What a celebration. Where are people going to find you? And how do you love working with people now? Two questions. Where can people find you? And how do you love people working with people now?
You can find me at maraglatzel.com. And right now I am offering a spring workshop series, which are a lot of like bite-size versions of my work, which is really awesome. But how I'm stoked to work with people in 2023 is that I'm going to Tuscany for a retreat in October. And that's going to be like a week-long immersion and a lot of good food. And I mean, it's the best possible way to do this work that I can think of. So come
I
join
will
me.
tell you, there are times that I'm so excited for that retreat. I really would love having been to Tuscany last year. I'm going to be in Nashville that week. So again, my heart is with Nashville right now. Um, but I one time remember having a conversation with you. You're like, here's how I retreat. Like, there will be a root beer float. Like, I will make somebody like a root beer float. I'm like, do you need to be the one making somebody a root beer float? And you're like, yep. Yes, I do, because it gives me extraordinary joy too.
Yeah. No, it's like we're always like getting tattoos. We're visiting like things that places you always wanted to go for your whole life. I mean, it's just, but that is, I love that. And creating those kinds of containers where, you rock up and ask for what you need. And then I conspire with you to meet that need. That's the best of it.
Root beer floats or not. All right, Mara, thank you so much. I'm mindful of time. Thank you, everybody, for being here, for your beautiful energy. Mara, just again, thank you for showing up exactly as you do, for getting caught up to your bigness, as you've named before, for writing this book that I'm very excited to read, let's just say it that way, and also really excited to have you in my ears, and this conversation will reverberate as that is your impact. You continue to move through my being and my soul. Adore you. Thank you.
Adore you too. Thanks for having me.
Thanks. Bye, everybody.
Bye.